Hi, Peter Charles here, Folks for Life Fly Fishing. And today we're going to look at a subject I don't think I've ever seen mentioned before. And that is what our flies look like when we suspend them from an indicator. You know, you've got this set up, you've got your flies underneath, you've got some split shot. What's that all look like? So let's take a look at this. Here's your standard nymph on your standard wet fly, down eye wet fly hook. Look how it hangs, vertical. So if you've got a perfect dead drift going through the water, that fly is hanging vertically. Now, is that a bad thing? Well, yes and no. If you were trying to imitate emergers, that'd be a good thing. If you've ever looked at a video of mayflies emerging, they go straight up. And so they look like this fly. They're going straight up in the water column. So if you were hanging this under an indicator and there was a hatch going on, that would probably work just fine. Now, if you did the same thing and you had a perfect dead drift and there was no hatch going on, it would look kind of weird. I mean, nymphs, mayfly nymphs, when they are, moving through the water, drifting, I've read that sometimes they're upside down. The current could be, if they're not swimming, if they're just drifting, they can be in almost any attitude. If they're swimming, that's a different story. I mean, they'll go in any direction. There's crawler nymphs, swimmer nymphs. Swimmer nymphs, any direction is good for them. So as you can see, if this thing is dead drifting, it may not look appropriate for the conditions if there's no hatch going on. And the other thing, too, is if you get a little bit of a dead drift going, well, yeah, you might be able to get a little bit of an angle to it, which would make it look a bit better. You can get it up there a little bit. And then you go, okay, fine, now that thing is working for us a little bit better. But we're taught you want a dead drift, that you don't want to pull the fly with the indicator. So you're caught between the rock and a hard place with that one. So here's what a fly looks like when it's suspended from an indicator. So let's, change flies here. Okay, this is a jig hook with a tungsten bead. And it's suspended straight down as well. But look how it rides. This, if you were going to imitate a pupa that's moving along the bottom. This is sort of a caddis pupa pattern. So if you were to imitate one of those moving along the bottom of the water column, that works. So if I wanted to do a crawler nymph, that's what I want it to look like going through the water. Whether I tie it upside down, right side up, it really doesn't matter as much. I want it to be a little bit more level. So here's where our hook choices start influencing things. In my previous video, I talked about, the down eye, up eye, that sort of thing. Here, the jig hook combined with tungsten bead gets a fly that rides closer to level when it's suspended vertically. If you are using a conventional wet fly hook or nymph hook, it's with a down eye, it's going to be like this, vertical. So neither one is perfectly right or perfectly wrong. I mean, if I wanted to do a caddis emerger, I might want that wet fly and want it to go straight up too. So, I wouldn't maybe tie the same pattern, but on a different hook. So, when we start to think what our flies look like under the water, I don't think most of us appreciate how much the hook shape affects how they swim in the water, how they look when we dead drift them. And so this is a kind of an important thing that you really have to give some thought to. How am I going to present this fly under this indicator looking like that? Now you know why the lasering lift works. Because if you've got a fly that's presenting like this and then you suddenly make it go up, I mean, you've just made it look like an emerger. And of course, fish are going to hit it. That's why that lasering lift works. So, keep that in mind the next time you tie up some nymphs to work under one of these things. Because, if we do it right, it's a dead drift, vertical presentation. And maybe you should be looking like using a fly something like this to get the presentation you actually want. So, give it some thought. Cheers.